The first snowflake of winter touched Kai's cheek exactly 5 seconds before his entire world shattered into a million pieces. He stood at the altar wearing traditional white Omega robes that his grandmother had spent 3 months embroidering with silver moon threads. The great hall of the Crystal Moon Palace was packed with thousands of wolves from every corner of the kingdom, all waiting to witness history. An Omega marrying not 1, not 2, but 3 Alpha Kings at once had never happened before in the 2,000 years of their kind's existence. Kai's hands trembled as he held the ceremonial bonding ribbons, each one representing a different Alpha King. The red ribbon for Riker, the oldest triplet with eyes like frozen steel and a presence that could silence an entire room. The blue ribbon for Axel, the middle brother whose gentle smile had made Kai feel safe since the first day they met. The green ribbon for Zane, the youngest with wild energy and jokes that always made Kai laugh until his stomach hurt. These 3 powerful alphas had chosen him, Kai, the Omega that every doctor in the kingdom had declared broken and infertile. The morning had started perfectly. Kai woke up in the guest chambers of the palace where he had spent the last 3 nights preparing for this moment. His best friend Lucas had been there, helping him dress, fixing his hair, telling him over and over how lucky he was. Lucas had known Kai since they were both 5 years old, running through the forests behind their village, playing hide and seek among the ancient trees. They had shared every secret, every dream, every fear. When the Triplet Kings had announced their intention to marry Chi 6 months ago, Lucas had been the first person to hug him and cry tears of joy. But now Lucas stood at the front of the crowd with an expression Kai had never seen before. His childhood friend's face was twisted with something dark and ugly. Before Kai could understand what was happening, Lucas stepped forward and raised his hand high in the air. "Stop this wedding." Lucas's voice rang out clear and sharp like a blade cutting through silk. "I have evidence that Kai is a traitor to the crown." The entire hall gasped. Kai felt his knees go weak. What was Lucas talking about? The 3 Alpha Kings who had been standing beside Kai ready to recite their vows all turned to look at Lucas with shocked expressions. "Explain yourself immediately," Riker commanded, his alpha voice making the windows rattle. "You dare interrupt a royal bonding ceremony with accusations?" Lucas pulled out a leather folder from his coat and walked toward the altar. His steps echoed in the suddenly silent hall. Kai wanted to run, wanted to scream, wanted to grab Lucas and shake him and ask what terrible joke this was. But his body was frozen in place like a statue made of ice. "For the past 6 months, Kai has been meeting secretly with members of the Shadow Fang Pack," Lucas said, opening the folder. Inside were photographs, letters, and documents. "The Shadow Fangs have been our enemies for 3 generations. They have killed hundreds of our pack members. And Kai has been giving them information about our defenses, our patrol schedules, and our weaknesses." "That's not true." Kai finally found his voice. It came out as a broken whisper. "Lucas, why are you lying? I would never." "These are pictures of you meeting with Shadow Fang warriors in the dark woods," Lucas interrupted, spreading the photographs on the altar for everyone to see. And there, in clear detail, were images of someone who looked exactly like Kai handing papers to wolves wearing the Shadow Fang insignia. "These are letters written in your handwriting describing our patrol patterns, and this is a recording of your voice discussing the best time to attack the eastern border." Lucas played the recording. Kai's voice filled the hall, speaking words he had never said, discussing plans he had never made. It sounded exactly like him. Every word, every breath, every pause was perfect. The 3 Alpha Kings stared at the evidence with expressions that broke Kai's heart into smaller and smaller pieces. Axel's gentle eyes filled with tears. Zane's playful smile disappeared completely. And Riker's face became cold and hard like stone. "Kai," Riker said slowly, his voice devoid of all warmth. "Did you do this?" "No." Kai grabbed Riker's arm, desperate to make him understand. "I swear on the Moon Goddess, I swear on my life, I have never met with the Shadow Fangs. I don't know how Lucas got these pictures or that recording, but it wasn't me. You have to believe me. Riker, Axel, Zane, please. You know me? You know I would never betray you or the pack." But Lucas had prepared for this moment perfectly. He pulled out more evidence. Bank statements showing large deposits of money into an account with Kai's name. text messages between Kai's phone and unknown numbers discussing the plan, witness statements from 3 different wolves claiming they had seen Kai sneaking out of the palace at night. The evidence was overwhelming, it was detailed, it was convincing, and it was all completely false. Kai looked around the hall desperately, searching for someone, anyone who would speak up for him. But everyone was staring at him with disgust and anger. The pack members who had congratulated him just an hour ago now looked at him like he was poison. "Guards," Riker's voice was like ice cutting through Kai's chest. "Remove this traitor from the palace. No, wait, please." Kai reached for Axel, hoping the gentle Alpha would listen. But Axel turned his face away, unable to look at Kai. "I thought you were different," Zane said quietly, and the hurt in his voice made Kai want to die right there on the spot. "I thought you were special, but you're just a liar." The guards grabbed Kai's arms roughly. The beautiful white robes tore as they dragged him down the aisle. Kai screamed and fought, trying to break free, trying to get back to the 3 alphas who were supposed to be his mates, his partners, his family. "Lucas, why?" Kai cried as the guards pulled him past his former best friend. "Why are you doing this to me?" For just a second, Lucas's mask slipped. Kai saw jealousy and hatred burning in those familiar eyes. "Because they were supposed to choose me," Lucas whispered so quietly that only Kai could hear. "I'm stronger than you. I'm more valuable than you. I did everything right, but they chose a broken, infertile Omega instead of me. So if I can't have them, neither can you." The realization hit Kai like a physical blow. Lucas had been planning this for months. Every smile, every hug, every word of encouragement had been a lie. The person Kai had trusted more than anyone in the world had destroyed him because of jealousy. The guards threw Kai out of the palace gates into the snow. His beautiful wedding robes were ruined, covered in mud and tears. The entire pack had followed to watch his humiliation. They threw stones and insults. They called him traitor, liar, snake. Someone spat on him. A child threw a rotting piece of fruit that hit him in the face. "Leave our territory immediately," the head guard announced. "If you are seen within 100 miles of the Crystal Moon Pack lands, you will be executed on sight." Kai had no money, no supplies, no warm clothes. He had nothing except the torn robes on his back and a heart that felt like it had been ripped from his chest and stomped into the ground. He stumbled away from the palace, away from the pack, away from the 3 Alpha Kings who had believed lies over the Omega they claimed to love. The snow fell harder as Kai walked. He didn't know where he was going. He just walked and walked, his bare feet leaving bloody footprints in the white snow. Hours passed. The sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that mocked the beauty of what should have been his wedding day. When Kai finally collapsed from exhaustion and cold, he found himself at the base of the frozen mountains. These were the most dangerous mountains in the entire kingdom. Wolves who entered rarely came back out. The cold could kill in minutes. Avalanches buried travelers without warning. Wild beasts hunted anything that moved. Kai didn't care. He wanted the mountains to swallow him whole. He wanted to disappear and never feel this pain again. He crawled forward until he found a cave hidden behind a frozen waterfall. The cave was small but deep, going far back into the mountain. Kai dragged himself inside and collapsed on the cold stone floor. He wrapped his arms around himself and cried. He cried until his throat was raw and his eyes were swollen shut. He cried for the life he had lost, for the love that had been stolen, for the betrayal that had destroyed everything. Days passed in a blur of pain and cold and hunger. Kai should have died in that cave. Any normal Omega would have frozen to death within the first night. But something strange was happening to Kai's body. He felt warm even though the cave was freezing. His stomach hurt in a way that had nothing to do with hunger. His body was changing, shifting, preparing for something impossible. 2 weeks after being thrown from the pack, Kai woke up to a realization that made him gasp out loud. The sickness he had been feeling, the changes in his body, the strange warmth, it all made sense now. He was pregnant. But that was impossible. Every doctor had examined Kai when he turned 18, the age when Omega's typically present. They had all said the same thing with sad faces and pitying voices. Kai's body was different. His reproductive system hadn't developed properly. He would never be able to carry pups. The condition was extremely rare, affecting only 1 in 10,000 omegas. Kai had cried for weeks when he first learned the truth. What alpha would want an omega who couldn't give them children? But then the triplet kings had chosen him anyway. They said they didn't care about pups. They wanted Kai for who he was, not for what his body could do. It had seemed like a miracle, like the moon goddess herself had blessed Kai with alphas who loved him completely. Now Kai understood the truth. The moon goddess had been preparing a different miracle entirely. Kai placed his hand on his stomach where he could feel the tiny flutters of life beginning to grow. He had been with the 3 alpha kings multiple times during their 6-month courtship. They had shared intimate moments full of love and laughter and promises for the future. Apparently, one of those moments had resulted in the impossible. "I'm going to have babies," Kai whispered to the empty cave. Then he started to cry again, but this time the tears were different. They were tears of joy mixed with terror. Joy because the moon goddess had given him the greatest gift possible. Terror because he was alone, homeless, and hunted by the only pack he had ever known. The months that followed were the hardest of Kai's life. He survived by hunting small animals and gathering frozen berries. He melted snow for water and kept warm by staying deep in the cave where the earth's heat rose from below. His body grew larger and larger as the pups inside him developed. He talked to them constantly, telling them stories, singing them songs, promising them that everything would be okay even though he had no idea if that was true. Kai learned he was carrying not 1 pup, not 2, but 4. He could feel each of them moving inside him, their tiny presences as distinct as 4 different heartbeats. The pregnancy should have been impossible for an omega alone without a pack support and an alpha's care. But somehow, Kai's body knew what to do. His instincts guided him through every stage. On the coldest night of the deepest winter, exactly 9 months after the wedding that never happened, Kai went into labor. He was completely alone in the cave with only the howling wind outside for company. The pain was worse than anything he had ever imagined. He screamed until his voice gave out. He pushed until he thought his body would break apart. He cried and prayed and begged the moon goddess for strength. And then, one by one, 4 perfect pups were born. The first was a girl with hair the color of flames in sunset, red and gold and absolutely beautiful. Kai wrapped her in a piece of his torn wedding robe and held her close as she let out her first cry. "Ember," he whispered, naming her after the fire that had kept him warm through the long winter. "My brave little Ember." The second was a boy with hair as white as the snow outside, almost silver in the dim light of the cave. He was smaller than his sister, but his cry was just as strong. Frost, Kai named him, tears streaming down his face. "My smart little Frost." The third was another boy, bigger than the others, with hair as black as a moonless night. His cry was the loudest of all, announcing his presence to the world with confidence. "Storm," Kai laughed through his exhaustion. "My strong little Storm." The fourth and final pup was another girl, the smallest of them all, with hair that seemed to shimmer with shades of blue like a river under moonlight. Her cry was gentle and sweet. "River," Kai whispered, pressing a kiss to her tiny forehead. "My gentle little river." Kai held all 4 pups against his chest, his body providing warmth and comfort as they nursed for the first time. He looked at their perfect little faces, their tiny fingers and toes, their eyes that hadn't opened yet, but would soon see the world for the first time. These were his children, his miracles, his reason to keep living. "I promise you," Kai spoke to each of them seriously, his voice hoarse from screaming but filled with determination. "I promise I will protect you. I will raise you to be strong and smart and kind. I will teach you everything I know, and I will never, ever let anyone hurt you the way I was hurt. We are a family now, just the 5 of us, and we will survive together no matter what." The pups couldn't understand his words, but they responded to his voice, snuggling closer and making small, contented sounds. Kai closed his eyes and let the exhaustion take him, sleeping with his 4 newborn pups safe in his arms. Years passed in that cave in the frozen mountains. Kai raised his 4 children with nothing but his love and determination. As the pups grew from infants to toddlers to young children, Kai taught them everything. He taught them how to hunt and fish. He taught them how to read and write using books he traded for in distant villages where no one knew his face. He taught them about the moon and stars, about honor and kindness, about the history of their wolf kind. What Kai didn't teach them was who their fathers were. The pups asked constantly as they got older. Why didn't they have other parents like the children in the stories? Where did they come from? But Kai couldn't bring himself to tell them the truth. How could he explain that their fathers were three powerful alpha kings who had thrown him away? How could he make them understand betrayal and lies when he wanted them to grow up believing in love and trust? Your fathers aren't here, Kai would say gently whenever they asked. But you have me, and I love you enough for 10 parents. The 4 pups developed personalities as distinct as their appearances. Ember was brave and protective, always the first to explore new areas of the mountain and the first to stand up when she thought her siblings were in danger. Frost was clever and curious, constantly asking questions about everything and figuring out solutions to problems that stumped even Kai. Storm was strong and energetic, running and climbing and pushing himself to be faster and better at everything. River was gentle and empathetic, the one who noticed when someone was sad, and who could calm any argument between her siblings with just a few words. But as the children reached their 5th birthday, something new began to happen. Something that made Kai's blood run cold with fear and realization. The pups started showing powers. It started with Ember. She got angry one day when a wild animal tried to attack River, and suddenly her hands burst into flames. Real flames that burned hot and bright. The animal ran away terrified, and Ember stared at her hands in shock before the fire disappeared. Then Frost discovered he could freeze water just by touching it. He was playing by a stream when he dipped his fingers in, and the entire stream turned to ice for 20 feet in every direction. Storm found out he could call the wind. When he got excited during a game, a gust of air appeared out of nowhere and lifted all his siblings off the ground for a few seconds, before setting them down gently. River's power was the gentlest but perhaps the most miraculous. She could heal. When Kai cut his hand preparing food, River touched the wound and it closed up completely, leaving not even a scar. These were not normal Omega abilities. These weren't even normal Alpha abilities. These were royal powers, the kind that only appeared in the bloodlines of the most ancient and powerful Alpha families in the entire world. The kind of powers that belonged to the Triplet Alpha Kings. Kai realized with growing horror that his children were developing the exact abilities that the 3 kings possessed. Riker could create and control fire. Axel could freeze anything with a touch. Zane could command the winds. And all 3 had advanced healing that made them nearly impossible to kill in battle. His pups weren't just the children of alphas. They were the children of the 3 most powerful alphas in existence. And if anyone discovered them, they would know immediately who the fathers were. Kai became more paranoid and protective. He made the children promise to never use their powers where anyone could see. He taught them to hide their abilities, to pretend to be normal Omega pups if they ever met other wolves. The children didn't understand why they had to hide, but they trusted their papa and did as he asked. To earn money for food and supplies, Kai took on secret jobs from traveling merchants who passed through the base of the mountains. He would fix broken wagons, craft items from mountain materials, and trade medicinal herbs that only grew in the high altitudes. He always wore a hood to hide his face and never told anyone his real name. The merchants called him the Mountain Ghost because he appeared and disappeared like a phantom. Life was hard, but it was peaceful. Kai had built a family from nothing. His children were healthy and happy. They laughed and played and learned. Every day, Kai felt his broken heart heal just a little bit more. The pain of betrayal was still there, buried deep, but his love for his 4 pups was stronger than any hurt. Then, on the morning of the children's 5th birthday, everything changed again. Kai had gone down to the nearest village to trade for birthday treats and special gifts for his pups. He told them firmly to stay in the cave, to not go outside, to not use their powers. The children promised, and Kai believed them. They had always been good at listening to his rules. But children are curious by nature, and 5-year-olds especially so. An hour after Kai left, Ember suggested they go exploring just a little bit around the cave entrance. Frost agreed, saying they could look for special rocks to give Papa as a gift. Storm was already running toward the entrance before anyone could argue. River hesitated, feeling that something wasn't right, but she didn't want to be left alone in the cave. The four pups played in the snow outside the cave, staying close to the entrance just like they were supposed to. They made snow wolves and had snowball fights and laughed with the pure joy that only children can possess. They didn't notice the figure watching them from behind a cluster of trees. They didn't see the recognition dawning in familiar eyes. They didn't know that their whole world was about to come crashing down. Because Lucas had never stopped searching for Kai. Lucas had spent 5 years being eaten alive by guilt. Not guilt for what he had done to Kai, but guilt for letting Kai escape with his life. In the weeks and months after the failed wedding, Lucas had achieved everything he wanted. The 3 Alpha Kings had been devastated by what they believed was Kai's betrayal, and Lucas had positioned himself as their trusted advisor. He was the one who had saved them from making a terrible mistake. He was the one they turned to for counsel and support. But it wasn't enough. It was never enough. Because even though Kai was gone, the Triplet Kings never looked at Lucas the way they had looked at Kai. Riker never smiled at Lucas with warmth in his eyes. Axel never laughed at Lucas's jokes the way he had laughed at Kai's silly stories. Zane never sought out Lucas's company just to sit together in comfortable silence. The Kings treated Lucas with respect and gratitude, but never with love. Lucas realized too late that destroying Chi hadn't won him the King's affection. It had only created 3 broken alphas who buried themselves in work and duty, never opening their hearts again to anyone. The palace that had once been full of music and laughter became cold and silent. The Kings never spoke about that day, never mentioned Kai's name, but Lucas could see the pain in their eyes whenever they thought no one was watching. That pain became Lucas's obsession. If he couldn't make the Kings love him, then he would erase every trace of Kai from existence. He would find the Omega who had escaped into the wilderness and make sure Kai could never return to haunt the King's memories. For 5 years, Lucas sent out search parties. He hired trackers and scouts. He followed every rumor of a lone Omega living in the wild. Most leads went nowhere. The few Omegas he did find were not Kai. It was as if Kai had disappeared from the world completely, swallowed by the mountains or killed by wild beasts. Lucas began to think that maybe Kai had died that first freezing night, and that gave him a bitter satisfaction. Then Lucas heard whispers from a village at the base of the frozen mountains. Stories about a mysterious hooded figure who appeared sometimes to trade with merchants. Someone who moved like a ghost and spoke with a voice that was hauntingly familiar to anyone who had known the Omega who was cast out 5 years ago. The merchants called this person the Mountain Ghost and claimed he lived somewhere high in the peaks where no one else dared to go. Lucas knew in his bones that the Mountain Ghost was Kai. Who else would hide in the most dangerous mountains in the kingdom? Who else would go to such lengths to stay hidden? So Lucas had come to the mountains himself, leaving his comfortable position at the palace without telling the Kings where he was going. He spent weeks searching the lower peaks, following the Mountain Ghost's rare appearances, tracking footprints in the snow. His determination was fueled by an obsession that had grown twisted and poisonous over the years. And finally, on a bright winter morning, Lucas found what he was looking for. 4 children playing in the snow near a hidden cave. 4 children who looked to be about 5 years old. 4 children who had eyes that glowed with an unmistakable golden light, the exact shade that marked the royal bloodline of the Triplet Alpha Kings. Lucas's first emotion was shock so profound he nearly fell down the mountain slope. Kai had children? 4 of them? But that was impossible. Kai was infertile. Every medical test had confirmed it, unless the moon goddess herself had intervened. Unless the impossible had become possible. Unless these 4 pups were the biological children of both Kai and the 3 Alpha Kings. Lucas watched the children play, and his shock transformed into something much darker. Jealousy crashed over him like an avalanche. Kai, the Omega who had stolen everything from Lucas, had also been blessed with children. Not just any children, but royal heirs with powers that Lucas could see even from a distance. The girl with fire dancing on her fingertips. The boy freezing snowballs solid with a touch. Another boy calling small winds to lift snow into spiral shapes. The smallest girl healing a bird with a broken wing that had fallen from a tree. These children were living proof that Kai had been innocent all along. If the Triplet Kings ever discovered these pups existed, they would realize immediately that Kai could never have betrayed them. The bonding that creates children between Omegas and Alphas only happens when there is true love and trust between mates. Betrayal prevents such bonds from forming. Every wolf knew this fundamental truth. If the Kings met these children, Lucas's carefully constructed lies would crumble to dust. His comfortable life would end. His position would be destroyed. He might even be executed for the treason he had actually committed while framing Kai. Lucas couldn't let that happen. He had come too far and sacrificed too much to lose everything now. He stepped out from behind the trees, smoothing his expression into something false and friendly. The 4 pups noticed him immediately and stopped playing. They clustered together instinctively, the older ones moving protectively in front of the smaller ones. "Hello there," Lucas called out gently, using the voice he reserved for frightened animals and nervous pack members. "I didn't mean to startle you. I'm just a traveler who got lost in these mountains. Are you children out here alone? That seems dangerous." The children didn't respond. They watched him with intelligent, wary eyes that reminded Lucas painfully of Kai. The girl with the flame-colored hair, Ember, Lucas guessed, stood at the front with her chin raised defiantly. "Our papa will be back soon," Ember announced. "And he's very strong. If you try to hurt us, he'll protect us, Papa." So Kai was definitely nearby. Lucas's mind raced through possibilities and plans. He couldn't attack 4 children with royal powers, even if they were young and untrained. One of them might escape and warn Chi, and then Lucas would lose his advantage. No, he needed to be smarter than that. "Oh, I would never hurt children," Lucas lied smoothly. "In fact, I'm friends with your papa. Is his name Kai? I've been searching everywhere for him. We used to be best friends before he had to leave. I want to help him come home." This was a mistake. Kai had clearly never told his children about Lucas because all 4 pups relaxed slightly at the mention of their father's name. They didn't know that Lucas was the reason their papa had been forced to raise them alone in a freezing cave for 5 years. "You know our papa?" Frost asked, his brilliant mind already analyzing Lucas with suspicious eyes that were too intelligent for a 5-year-old. "Why did he have to leave? He never tells us about before we were born." "That's a very sad story," Lucas said, moving closer slowly. "Your papa was treated very unfairly by some bad people. But I can help make it right. Why don't you children come with me down to the village? We can wait for your papa there where it's warm and safe, and then I can take you all back to meet 3 very important people who miss your papa very much." The children looked at each other, having a silent conversation with expressions and small gestures. Lucas could see they were tempted. What child wouldn't want to leave a cold cave for a warm village? What child wouldn't want to meet important people? But River, the smallest one with the bluish hair, suddenly shook her head firmly. "No. Papa said never to go anywhere with strangers. He said to always wait for him and to never trust people we don't know." "Smart child," Lucas cursed internally. Kai had trained his pups well. "I understand," Lucas said, changing tactics. He reached into his coat pocket. "Well then, since you're waiting for your papa anyway, maybe you'd like some treats? I have special cookies from the capital city. They're very rare and delicious." He pulled out a bag of cookies that he had purchased from a merchant, but what the children couldn't see was that Lucas had added something to the cookies, a special powder that would make them sleepy and compliant, not enough to seriously hurt them, but enough to make them easy to capture. The children's eyes widened at the sight of the cookies. They had probably never had anything like that before, living in a cave with limited supplies. Even Frost's suspicious expression softened a little. "Just a few cookies while you wait for your papa," Lucas coaxed. "What harm could that do?" Ember reached out toward the bag, and Lucas knew he had won. These were just children, after all. Sheltered children who didn't understand the evil that existed in the world. Children who were about to pay the price for their father's sins. But before Ember's hand could touch the bag, a sharp whistle cut through the air. All 4 children immediately dropped to the ground and rolled away from Lucas. It was clearly a signal they had been trained to respond to instantly. Lucas spun around to see Kai standing at the cave entrance. The Omega he hadn't seen in 5 years looked different, older, harder, leaner from years of survival in harsh conditions. But his eyes were the same. Still that striking shade of amber that had made the Triplet Kings fall in love with him. "Get away from my children." Kai's voice was low and deadly, nothing like the soft-spoken Omega Lucas remembered. This was a parent protecting their young, and there was nothing more dangerous in the wolf world. The 4 pups scrambled to their father, hiding behind his legs. Kai placed himself between Lucas and the children, his body tense and ready to fight even though Lucas was a beta and physically stronger. "Kai," Lucas said, abandoning all pretense of friendliness. "So you survived after all, and with 4 royal bastards no less. Does the Triplet Alpha Kings know you stole their seed to create illegal heirs?" "These children are not illegal," Kai snarled. "They are my pups, born from love that you destroyed with your lies." Lucas laughed, the sound echoing off the mountain rocks. "Love? Is that what you call it? The kings believed my evidence because there was truth in it. You were always weak, always pathetic, always less than what they needed. These children are mistakes that should never have existed." Kai's face went pale with rage. Lucas saw the Omega's hands clench into fists, saw the protective fury burning in those amber eyes. Good. Angry people made mistakes. "Papa?" River's small voice came from behind Kai. "Who is this bad man? Why is he saying mean things?" "This is Lucas," Kai said quietly, never taking his eyes off his former friend. "This is the person who destroyed our family before you were even born. And he's going to leave now, or I'll make him leave." "You can't make me do anything," Lucas replied. "You're a weak Omega with 4 children to protect. I'm a trained beta warrior. But I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you a choice. Come with me quietly, all 5 of you, and I'll make sure your children are placed in good homes with proper families. Resist, and I'll report your location to the king's guards. They'll come with silver chains and iron cages. Your children will be taken from you and raised as royal hostages, and you'll be executed for treason. Choose wisely, Kai." The threat hung in the cold mountain air like poison. Kai knew Lucas wasn't bluffing. The beta had enough influence at the palace to make good on his promises. But Kai had also learned many things during 5 years alone in the wilderness. He had learned to fight, to hunt, to survive against impossible odds. Most importantly, he had learned that he would do absolutely anything to protect his children. "Run," Kai whispered to his pups without turning around. "Run deep into the cave where I taught you to hide. Don't come out until I call for you with our special song. Understand?" "But Papa," Storm started to protest. "Now." Kai's alpha command shocked even himself. He had never used that tone with his children before. But it worked. All 4 pups turned and ran into the cave, disappearing into the darkness. Kai turned his full attention to Lucas. His former friend was pulling out a weapon, a silver dagger that would be deadly against wolfkind. Silver prevented healing and caused wounds that never fully closed. "You're going to regret that decision," Lucas said, advancing with the dagger raised. But before Lucas could attack, a miracle happened. The sky suddenly darkened with clouds that hadn't been there a moment before. The temperature dropped so fast that Lucas could see his breath turning to ice crystals in the air. The wind picked up, howling around them with unnatural fury. Inside the cave, the 4 pups had not run away like their papa told them. Instead, they had stopped just inside the entrance, watching through a crack in the rocks. When they saw the bad man pull out a weapon and threaten their beloved father, something inside all 4 of them snapped. Their powers exploded outward, magnified by their combined rage and fear. Ember's fire blazed so hot the snow around the cave entrance began to melt. Frost's cold made ice climb up the mountain rocks in jagged patterns. Storm's wind screamed down from the peaks with enough force to knock a grown man off his feet, and River's healing power reached out toward her papa, wrapping around him like invisible armor. Lucas stumbled backward, shocked by the sudden display of power. He had known that children had abilities, but seeing all 4 working together was terrifying. These weren't normal royal powers. These were something else entirely. Something that happened when 4 children born of love and raised in isolation combined their gifts into one devastating force. "You can't hurt our papa," Ember screamed, and flames shot from her hands toward Lucas. The beta had to dive behind a rock to avoid being burned. This was wrong. This was all wrong. Children weren't supposed to have this much power. 5-year-olds weren't supposed to be able to command the elements like ancient alphas. Kai took advantage of Lucas's distraction to attack. He might be an Omega, but 5 years of survival had made him strong. He tackled Lucas while the beta was off balance, and they rolled together down the snowy slope. The silver dagger fell from Lucas's hand and disappeared into a snowdrift. They fought viciously, all pretense of civilization gone. Kai fought with the desperate strength of a parent protecting their children. Lucas fought with the fury of someone whose carefully built life was crumbling. They clawed and bit and punched, leaving blood on the white snow. But Kai was weakening. Lucas was physically stronger, and the fight was taking its toll. Just as Lucas got the upper hand, wrapping his hands around Kai's throat, a new voice rang out across the mountain. "Stop!" 3 figures appeared at the edge of the clearing. 3 massive wolves with the unmistakable bearing of alphas. No, not just any alphas. The 3 most powerful alphas in the entire kingdom. Riker, Axel, and Zane had finally found the Omega they had thrown away 5 years ago. The 3 Alpha Kings had been searching for Kai for 2 months. Not to punish him, but to beg his forgiveness. Because 2 months ago, everything Lucas had built on lies had finally fallen apart. It started with an old wolf named Elder Marcus, who served as the palace's head of security. Marcus had been locked away in the dungeon for 5 years, imprisoned on false charges that Lucas had carefully arranged. Lucas had made sure Marcus couldn't tell anyone that the evidence against Kai had been faked, that the photographs were doctored, that the recording was created by a voice manipulator, that everything had been an elaborate scheme born from jealousy and obsession. But dungeons can't hold determined prisoners forever. Marcus was old but clever, and he had friends among the younger guards who believed in his innocence. After 5 years of planning, Marcus escaped his cell and went directly to the 3 Alpha Kings with the truth. At first, Riker, Axel, and Zane refused to believe him. The evidence against Kai had been so convincing. The betrayal had hurt so deeply. They had spent 5 years trying to forget the Omega they had loved and lost. But Marcus brought proof. He brought the original photographs that showed the images had been edited. He brought the voice manipulation device Lucas had used to create the fake recording. He brought testimony from wolves who had been bribed to lie about seeing Kai sneaking out of the palace. He brought bank statements showing that Lucas had created the fake account in Kai's name and deposited the money himself. The 3 kings listened to Marcus's evidence, and their world shattered for the second time. Everything they had believed was a lie. Kai had been innocent. Kai had been telling the truth when he begged them to believe him, and they had thrown him out into a freezing winter night to die. "We have to find him," Axel had said immediately, tears streaming down his face. "We have to find Kai and apologize and bring him home." "He's probably dead," Zane said quietly, his usual playful energy completely gone. "We sent him out with nothing, no food, no shelter, no warm clothes, and Omega alone in winter, there's no way he survived. Then we find his body and give him a proper burial," Riker declared, his voice breaking with emotion for the first time in 5 years. "And we make Lucas pay for what he's done." They arrested Lucas immediately, throwing him in the same dungeon cell he had arranged for Marcus. But when they interrogated him, Lucas refused to tell them where he had sent Kai or what direction the Omega had gone. He just smiled that twisted smile and said, "You'll never find him. He's gone forever, just like he deserves." The 3 kings sent out search parties in every direction. They searched every village, every forest, every mountain range. They offered rewards for any information about a lone Omega who had disappeared 5 years ago. Weeks passed with no results, then months. The kings began to lose hope that they would ever find Kai alive. Then one of their scouts reported something strange. In a village at the base of the frozen mountains, merchants spoke of a mysterious hooded figure who sometimes appeared to trade. A figure who moved like a ghost and spoke with a voice that might belong to an Omega. It was a thin lead, but it was the only lead they had. Riker, Axel, and Zane went to the mountains themselves, refusing to send others to do what they should do personally. They searched for 2 weeks in the harsh conditions, following rumors and faint trails. They were about to give up when they heard something incredible. A scout reported seeing 4 children with golden eyes playing in the snow near a hidden cave. Golden eyes that only appeared in the royal bloodline. Children who couldn't possibly exist unless... The 3 Alpha Kings ran toward that location with their hearts pounding. They ran with hope and fear and desperate longing. If those children existed, if they were really the offspring of Kai and the 3 Alphas, then it meant Kai was alive. It meant the impossible had happened. It meant they had a chance to fix the terrible mistake they had made. But they arrived to find a scene of violence. Kai fighting with Lucas while 4 young children used incredible powers to try to protect their father. The Omega they had loved was being choked by the Beta who had destroyed their lives. Stop. Riker's Alpha command voice was so powerful that every wolf within a mile radius felt compelled to obey. Lucas's hands fell away from Kai's throat immediately. The 4 children's powers flickered and died as they turned to stare at the 3 massive Alphas who had just appeared. Kai gasped for air, coughing and clutching his bruised throat. He looked up at the 3 Alpha Kings and his eyes went wide with shock. 5 years. 5 years since he had seen those faces. 5 years since his heart had been broken by their rejection. Kai. Axel whispered the name like a prayer. All 3 Alphas wanted to rush forward, to gather Kai into their arms, to apologize 1,000 times. But they stayed where they were, afraid that approaching too quickly would frighten the Omega who had every reason to hate them. The 4 children didn't understand what was happening. They had never seen their papa look so scared and hurt and confused all at the same time. Ember ran out from the cave entrance, her siblings following close behind. They rushed to Kai and surrounded him protectively, creating a barrier of small bodies between their father and the strange Alphas. "Don't hurt our papa," Ember shouted at the 3 Kings. Fire danced on her fingertips again, weak from exhaustion but still present. "We won't let you hurt him like the bad man tried to." The 3 Alpha Kings stared at the 4 children in absolute wonder. They could see themselves in those young faces. Ember had Riker's fierce determination and his firepower. Frost had Axel's intelligent eyes and his ice abilities. Storm had Zane's wild energy and his wind control. River had the healing power that all 3 Kings possessed, but with a gentleness that came directly from Kai. "These are our children," Zane said in amazement. "Kai, you had our children. Stay away from them." Kai's voice was hoarse from being choked but still firm. He pulled his 4 pups closer to him. "You don't get to call them yours. You gave up that right when you threw me away. These are my children. I raised them alone. I protected them alone. I loved them alone while you believed lies about me." Each word was a knife stabbing into the 3 Kings' hearts. They deserved it. They deserved every ounce of Kai's anger and pain. "You're right," Riker said, and his voice was humble in a way it had never been before. "We failed you. We believed lies when we should have trusted our mate bond. We threw you away when you were innocent. We are sorry, Kai. Those words are not enough, but they are all we have." "Sorry?" Kai laughed bitterly. "You're sorry? I almost died that first night. I gave birth to 4 children in a freezing cave with no help and no pain medicine. I raised them in hiding because I was terrified you would find us and take them away from me. I have spent 5 years living in fear while you lived comfortably in your palace. And now you say you're sorry?" "Papa, who are these people?" Frost asked quietly. His brilliant mind was already putting pieces together. 3 Alphas with the same golden eyes as him and his siblings. 3 Alphas who called them our children. 3 Alphas who were looking at Papa with expressions that Frost recognized from stories, the look of someone who had lost everything important. Kai closed his eyes briefly, and when he opened them again, tears were falling freely. "These are your fathers," he told his children gently. "These are the 3 Alpha Kings who I was supposed to marry before Lucas destroyed everything with his lies. These are the Alphas who share your blood." The 4 children turned to stare at the 3 Kings with new understanding. Storm spoke up boldly. "If you're our papas, why did you let our father raise us alone? Why weren't you there when we were born? Why didn't you protect us?" The questions from a 5-year-old hit harder than any physical blow. Axel fell to his knees in the snow, tears streaming down his face. "Because we made a terrible mistake," he said honestly. We believed lies about your papa. We thought he had betrayed us. We were wrong. And by the time we learned the truth, 5 years had passed. We have been searching for your papa for 2 months, hoping to find him and apologize. We never knew you existed. If we had known, nothing in this world could have kept us away. Zane also knelt in the snow. We failed your papa and we failed you. We missed your births, your first steps, your first words, everything. We can never get those years back. But if you'll give us a chance, we want to be your papas now. We want to protect you and love you and make up for all the time we lost. Riker stayed standing, but his eyes were wet with tears he rarely allowed himself to shed. We know we don't deserve forgiveness, but we're asking for it anyway. We're begging for it. Please, Kai, please give us a chance to make this right. The 4 children looked to their papa for guidance. Kai was the one who had always made the decisions, who had always protected them, who had always known what to do. But now papa was crying, and that scared them more than anything else that had happened. Lucas, who had been forgotten during this emotional scene, tried to use the distraction to escape. But he barely made it 3 steps before Riker grabbed him by the throat and lifted him off the ground. You, Riker growled, and his alpha fury was terrifying to witness. You are the cause of all this pain. You separated us from our true mate. You stole 5 years of our children's lives from us. You tried to murder Kai and kidnap the pups. Your punishment will be severe. Do whatever you want to me, Lucas gasped, still defiant even while being choked. I don't care anymore. If I couldn't have you, at least I made sure that Kai suffered. That's where you're wrong, Axel said coldly, standing up from where he had been kneeling. Kai didn't just suffer. He survived. He thrived. He raised 4 incredible children who love him completely. He built a life from nothing. He is stronger than you ever were. Stronger than we gave him credit for. You destroyed nothing, Lucas. You only revealed your own weakness. Riker threw Lucas toward the palace guards who had followed the kings to the mountain. Take him back to the dungeon. His trial will be public and his punishment will fit his crimes. He will never harm anyone again. The guards dragged Lucas away, but not before he shouted one last poisonous statement. You'll never be a real family. Those children will never truly accept you. Kai will never forgive you. I win because I destroyed what you could have had. His words echoed off the mountains and then faded into silence as the guards took him away. The 3 Alpha Kings turned back to Kai and the 4 children. The Omega was still crying, holding his pups close, looking lost and broken and beautiful all at the same time. We don't expect you to forgive us immediately, Riker said gently. We don't expect you to trust us right away, but please, Kai, come back to the palace with us. Let us provide for you and our children. Let us prove over time that we are worthy of a second chance. We're not asking you to love us again. We're just asking you to let us try to earn back what we lost. Kai looked at his 4 children, at Ember's fierce protectiveness, at Frost's intelligent contemplation, at Storm's hopeful excitement, at River's gentle empathy. They deserved better than a cave in the mountains. They deserved warm beds and good food and education and safety. They deserved to know their fathers, even if those fathers had failed them so terribly. If I come back, Kai said slowly, his voice still hoarse, it's not for you 3, it's for my children. They deserve to grow up in comfort and safety. They deserve to know their heritage. But understand this clearly, you are not my mates anymore. That bond was broken 5 years ago when you chose to believe lies over trusting your hearts. You can be fathers to the pups if you prove yourselves worthy. But you and I, we're done. The words shattered what remained of the 3 kings' hearts. But they nodded in acceptance because they had no right to demand anything more. We understand, Zane said quietly. Thank you for giving us this chance with our children. We won't waste it. The journey back to the Crystal Moon Palace took 3 days. The 3 kings had brought supplies and warm clothes for the trip, and they were amazed at how well-behaved and intelligent the 4 pups were despite being raised in isolation. Ember showed them the fire tricks she had taught herself. Frost explained complex patterns he had noticed in snowflakes. Storm demonstrated how he could make small tornadoes by spinning in circles. River healed a wounded rabbit they found on the path. Each child was a miracle, and the 3 kings fell more in love with them every moment. They wanted to hold the pups, to play with them, to bond with them. But the children were wary of these strange alphas who claimed to be their papas. They stayed close to Kai and watched the kings with suspicious eyes. Kai himself barely spoke to the three alphas during the journey. When Riker offered to carry him across a difficult river crossing, Kai refused and crossed on his own. When Axel tried to give him extra food, Kai shared it with the children instead. When Zane attempted to make him laugh with a joke, Kai simply walked away. The Omega had built walls around his heart, and those walls were high and thick and covered in thorns. When they finally reached the palace, the entire pack gathered to see the impossible sight of their rejected Omega returning with 4 royal children. The wolves who had thrown stones at Kai 5 years ago now looked ashamed. The ones who had called him traitor now bowed their heads in respect. News of Lucas's betrayal and Kai's innocence had spread throughout the pack, and everyone knew they had wronged an innocent Omega terribly. The 3 kings made an official announcement to the pack. They declared Kai innocent of all accusations. They revealed the truth about Lucas's lies and jealousy. They introduced the 4 children as the legitimate heirs to the throne, and they proclaimed that anyone who disrespected or harmed Kai or the pups would face the king's direct wrath. Kai was given the finest guest chambers in the palace, the same rooms he had stayed in 5 years ago while preparing for the wedding that never happened. The 4 pups were given adjoining rooms filled with toys and books and soft beds. For the first time in their lives, the children had more than they needed. "Papa, this bed is so soft," River exclaimed that first night, bouncing on the mattress. "Papa, look at all these books." Frost ran his hands over an entire library shelf in his room. "Papa, can we really keep all these toys?" Storm asked, holding a wooden dragon. "Papa, there's a fireplace in here just for making fire," Ember said with delight. Kai smiled sadly at his children's joy. They were so happy with simple comforts that most royal children took for granted. It broke his heart all over again thinking about everything they had missed. The 3 Alpha Kings visited every day, always polite, always respectful, always keeping a careful distance from Kai while trying to build relationships with their children. It was awkward at first. The pups didn't know how to interact with fathers they had just met. The kings didn't know how to be parents to children they had missed raising. But slowly, carefully, bonds began to form. Riker taught Ember how to control her fire powers properly. He showed her that fire could be used for more than destruction. It could provide warmth, cook food, create light in darkness. Ember was resistant at first, but Riker's patience and genuine interest in her abilities slowly won her over. Axel spent hours with Frost, answering the boys' endless questions about everything from science to history to philosophy. Frost's brilliant mind craved knowledge, and Axel had an entire palace library to share. They would sit together for hours reading and discussing, and Kai sometimes heard them laughing together late into the evening. Zane connected with Storm through physical activity and adventure. They raced through the palace gardens, climbed trees, practiced combat moves, and generally caused cheerful chaos wherever they went. Storm had never had the space or freedom to fully express his wild energy, and Zane gave him that gift. River was the hardest for any of them to reach. The gentle little girl was deeply empathetic and could sense the pain and guilt radiating from all 3 kings. She stayed close to Kai most of the time, offering healing touches to her papa's old wounds and newer hurts. But one day, when Kai was resting, River approached the 3 alphas where they were sitting together in the garden. "Why do you look so sad all the time?" she asked them directly in her sweet voice. The 3 kings were surprised by the question. Axel answered honestly, "Because we hurt your papa very badly, and we can never take that back. We love him, and we love you and your siblings, but we made terrible mistakes. That makes us sad." River thought about this seriously. Then she reached out and placed her small hands on each of their chests, one at a time. Her healing power flowed through them, not healing physical wounds, but soothing the emotional anguish they carried. "Healing doesn't happen all at once," River said with wisdom beyond her years. "It takes time, like when someone breaks their leg and needs to rest and get stronger slowly. Papa's heart is like a broken leg. It needs time and rest and care, but maybe it can heal if you're patient." The 3 kings were moved to tears by this child's understanding. Zane lifted River gently and held her close. "Thank you," he whispered. "You're very wise for someone so small." After that day, River began to warm up to her fathers. She would sit with them sometimes, making small talk, sharing stories about growing up in the cave with Papa. Through River, the other three children also began to soften their defensive walls. Months passed. The four pups grew more comfortable in the palace. They made friends with other pack children. They attended lessons with the best teachers. They learned about their heritage and their powers. They were happy. But Kai remained distant from the three alpha kings. He was polite but cold. He allowed them to spend time with the children but rarely joined those family moments. He attended pack functions and fulfilled his role as the parent of the royal heirs, but he never stayed longer than necessary. He still called his room the guest chambers and insisted he was only staying until the children were old enough to decide for themselves if they wanted to remain in the palace. The three kings respected Kai's boundaries even though it killed them a little more each day. They loved this Omega who had survived impossible odds, who had raised 4 perfect children alone, who was stronger than anyone gave him credit for. But they had destroyed his trust, and they knew they might never get it back. 1 year after returning to the palace, on the children's 6th birthday, the entire pack gathered for a huge celebration. There was food and music and dancing and gifts. The 4 pups were the center of attention, and they loved every minute of it. Late in the evening, after the children had fallen asleep exhausted from excitement, Kai found himself alone on one of the palace balconies. He was looking up at the moon, thinking about how far he had come. From a broken Omega thrown into the snow to the parent of 4 royal children. From a freezing cave to a comfortable palace. From being completely alone to being surrounded by pack again. He didn't hear the 3 alpha kings approach until they were standing behind him. "Kai," Riker said softly, "can we talk to you?" Kai tensed but nodded. He owed them this much after they had been patient and respectful for an entire year. The 3 kings knelt down in front of him, just like they had done in the snow a year ago. But this time they weren't begging to be forgiven. They were offering something different. "We know we can never undo the pain we caused you," Axel began. "We know we don't deserve your love or trust. We've accepted that. But we want you to know that over this past year, watching you with our children, seeing your strength and grace and endless capacity to love, we have fallen in love with you all over again, deeper than before. True love that isn't based on attraction or a mate bond, but on genuine respect and admiration for who you are. We're not asking you to love us back," Zane continued. "We're not asking you to be our mate. We're not asking for anything at all. We just wanted you to know that you are loved, completely, unconditionally, for exactly who you are, and that love will never change, whether you ever forgive us or not. We will spend the rest of our lives proving our love through our actions," Riker finished. "We will be the best fathers we can be to our children. We will protect you and honor you. We will never, ever make you doubt your worth again. This is our promise, whether you accept it or not." Kai listened to their words, and something inside his carefully guarded heart finally cracked. He had spent a year watching these 3 alphas pour all their energy into being good fathers. He had seen them be patient with the children's tantrums, celebrate their small victories, comfort their nightmares. He had seen them treat him with respect and kindness without expecting anything in return. But more than that, he had seen them change. Riker had become gentler, learning to show emotion instead of hiding behind cold authority. Axel had become more confident, standing up for what was right instead of always staying silent. Zane had become more thoughtful, thinking before acting instead of just following impulse. They had become better alphas, better people, and they had done it not to win Kai back, but because they genuinely wanted to be worthy of their children and their Omega. Tears started falling down Kai's face. All the pain and anger and hurt he had carried for so long suddenly felt too heavy. He was tired of holding on to that weight. He was tired of living behind walls. He was tired of being afraid to let himself love again. "I'm still angry at you," Kai said honestly. "Part of me will probably always be angry about what happened and what we lost. But I've also seen how hard you've tried this past year. I've seen how much you love our children. And maybe River was right. Maybe healing takes time. But it is possible if we're patient. The three kings looked up at him with hope flickering in their eyes for the first time in years. "I'm not ready to be your mate again," Kai continued. "I'm not ready to trust you completely. But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to see if we can build something new from the broken pieces of what we had before. I'm willing to give us a chance to become a real family, not just for the children, but for all of us." Riker reached out slowly and took Kai's hand. "That's more than we deserve. Thank you." Axel took Kai's other hand. "We will earn your trust again, however long it takes." Zane stood up and gently wiped the tears from Kai's face. "We love you. We will always love you. Thank you for giving us this chance." From that night forward, things changed slowly but steadily. Kai began joining family dinners more often. He laughed at Zane's jokes sometimes. He discussed books with Axel. He accepted Riker's offers of help without immediately refusing. The walls around his heart came down one brick at a time. The three alpha